Good morning. Good morning. Happy Mother's Day. A dear friend of mine wrote this recently. This morning, I've been thinking about Mother Earth as the ultimate heroine of Mother's Day. I kind of love that, so I wanted to start with that today. To some extent, all of us have been mothered by someone, often many different someones. One does not have to become a mother to practice the verb mothering. I will share more thoughts on this in a minute. Our theme this month is cultivating community. In this spirit, I will be speaking about mothering as an act of connection. Our minister, Dunkley, will be giving the reflection for this Mother's Day service. Does anyone have an announcement?
Good morning. I have this announcement for Sarah Hall, who's away. So on May 30th, the weekend of May 30th and 31st, the last weekend in May, Sarah will be giving a stress detox course in the chapel. She writes, "This course is a beautiful combination of ancient spiritual practices and modern science. It's designed to clear the physical, energetic, mental, and emotional dimensions of our being. As the no longer helpful habits and clutter dissolve, we move into clarity, ease, and a heightened capacity to connect with ourselves, our loved ones, and the intelligence of this beautiful universe." So I took the course a couple of years ago, and I'm going to take it again. And all of us have stress, so if you're interested, Sarah will be here next week. So thank you.
There are a lot of things going on at North Chapel each week. Please take the time to read the many announcements in your order of service. In addition, you can visit the church website for all the news. Spiritual education today is being led by Tatum. If you are visiting today, we would love to have you sign the guest book at the back of the church. After the service, please join us downstairs for coffee and continued conversation. Now is the time to please silence any beeping devices you might have. I would like to speak about mothering as a verb. To me, mothering is a loving act of caring for another person or animal. Supporting one another can be as easy as listening to someone when they need a shoulder, to lend a hug, or to help in other ways. There are many ways to mother someone, is my point. According to the Cambridge Dictionary, mothering is the active process of nurturing, caring for, and protecting children or others, often characterized by unconditional love and emotional support. It extends beyond biological parenting to include adoptive, foster care, and nurturing actions, sometimes appearing as overprotective behavior. It is a learned practice rather than just a biological trait. I found that last sentence kind of interesting, that it's a learned practice. Anyway. I like the part about it going beyond biological parenting because some of us lose our mothers early, in childbirth, through neglect, through illness, adoption, etc. In my case, my mother was diagnosed with MS when I was an infant. She was focused on her declining health, and thus I was handed to my 9-year-old sister. Truthfully, she did the best that she could for a 9-year-old. As I grew, I sought out other mother figures in my life. 5 key women mothered me. Number 1, my sister, who I just mentioned. I'm very grateful for her sacrifice to me as a young child. It was not easy for her. Second one was our next door neighbor. She mentored and loved me in so many ways. I always knew she was there for me. They were there with me right through to the end of my father's dying too. That's the kind of neighbor they were. What a marvelous laugh she had. Her joy filled the room. She was the first person who taught me how to diaper a baby with cloth and pins. And yes, I did stick the baby once. The third was a dear friend who cleaned our house once a week. Sometimes I would fake being sick so I could spend the day with her. She was all love and joy. She played with me and my friends. I will never forget her wonderful laugh, her loving kindness, her homemade Parker rolls, and fried chicken. Then later in my early 20s, a mother-in-law influenced me greatly by demonstrating a kind of mothering I had never witnessed before. I was in awe of her loving kindness. She would spontaneously grab one of her 5 children walking through the kitchen and hug and kiss them and say the words, "I love you." The first time I saw this, my jaw dropped. I thought, I want to be like that when I grow up. And the 5th person is a recent mother in my life, and her name is Katrina McHugh. And she is one of the best mothers I've ever seen, and she has taught me so much. She has a master's in behavior therapy, and as a board-certified behavior analyst, has taught me and her own children and all the children in her care so much. So I'm eternally grateful. And now I don't have to make you watch the recording. I didn't know they were coming. In conclusion, all of us can mother one another by showing loving kindness and care toward one another. You don't have to be a mother or a woman to mother someone. I continue to mother the people I care about. It is a gift we give each other. Now I have a special surprise. Put the book over there, it doesn't matter. I started coming to this church in the early 90s when a woman named Nancy Martin was here. Everybody remember Nancy Martin? A wonderful poet. According to the internet, they think she's 107 years old. I don't think Nancy's still with us. Anyway, this poem by her is titled 1921. A tiny girl stood in her crib, nightie pulled tight over her toes. Outside, a scatter of raindrops, smell of lilacs, mock orange. A few birds on the grass, promise of early clearing. "Lovey day," said the child, her arms outstretched. She said it every morning. Her mother laughed and loved her for it. Lovey day, was there any other kind? We will now enter a time of meditation.
I want to give a shout out to all my friends who are mothers in the world, people that I've grown up with. I got a text from a high school friend that said, I haven't talked to you in a while and my kids are going to college now. And the last time I saw them, they were, bitty. They weren't college folks. How many people like hot sauce? How many people really like hot sauce? Separates the New Englanders from the New Orleanians. Never let anyone tell you that individuals cannot make a difference. The daughter of a mother of invention said this to me. Jonathan Brooke, who's a singer-songwriter, describes her mother as the angel in the house, which is interesting because they had a very trying relationship. But what she knew is that in times of great tempest and discomfort, she was never alone. Her mother was always with her, despite whatever difficulties they were going through. And I think it's important to say up front that motherhood is the singularly most courageous thing that we do. I wonder what is the artful definition of mother upon which we can all agree. Does such a thing even exist? What are mothers, really? There are so many different kinds. What are mothers but women through whom great miracles sometimes happen? And you know what becomes of great miracles, don't you? We do. We become of miracles, we who flower so beautifully and we who are stolen by and gifted by the passage of time, we who grow wise and go gray and are never even a little less beautiful, less precious, or less miraculous than we were when we first started out. What are mothers but women through whom great miracles sometimes happen? We become of miracles. We are the flawed and the beautiful and the beautifully imperfect. We are the brilliantly limited beings born of love and grace and life's longing for itself. The history of desire is such. And some of us grow and bear children of our own, children who are capable over time of living without us. Mother's Day tends to recognize and tends to honor this experience. And so flowers and chocolates and Hallmark cards are delivered as we celebrate mothers. I looked up funny Mother's Day cards, and there were some funny ones, but the funniest one I saw was not a Mother's Day card. It was just a picture of a woman from 1920, 1930, sort of profile, no smile, very drab, sort of grim expression. And it said something like, there are plenty of warnings in life, but why can't some of our warnings be, caution? Using this product may lead to extreme sexiness. We become of miracles, we the flawed, the beautifully imperfect, the brilliantly limited beings that we are. Some of us grow to bear children of our own, and some of us grow and do not bear children of our own, or cannot bear, or do not choose to bear children of our own. So we experience this holiday in many different ways. Hallmark cards don't always respond to the great variety of this experience. They tend to pretty much stay normal and pretty mainstream. And that's cool, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the miracles of life, the great miracles, they tend to take place on the edge. Even when that edge seems pretty normal and mainstream. A colleague of mine once reminds me often, she says, life is messy. And she's right, it is. No one knows that better than a mom. Moms know imperfection in excellent ways, sometimes in difficult ways. I came across this lovely sentiment about imperfection in a poem by a woman named Rose Brick. It was entitled, "The Softness That Survives." They say, don't have kids until you are healed. But many of us didn't realize the severity of our trauma until we became parents. Every step of motherhood became a trigger that I didn't even know I had. It made me remember things that I had forced myself to forget. It's from a book of poems about childhood and trauma and sacred healing. Healing is the attitude of growth. I like growth. I'm up for it. Growth is the hot sauce of life. It's better than the alternative. Less comfortable maybe, but definitely better. Change is inevitable, they say. Change is inevitable, but growth is optional. One has to choose to grow. One has to choose to heal. One has to choose to shelter the heart. This is the first part of motherhood, right? The sheltering of the heart. This is the meaning and the value of the pregnancy, the choice to shelter the heart, choosing to nurture the heart that is fragile, the heart that is delicate, the heart that is vulnerably growing within us. The second part of motherhood is the same, except for the heart is no longer within, but newly outside of us miraculously. Not all of us have this experience, but inescapably, we are all a function of it. Our job now is to appreciate the miracle, and that's hard for us because we are flawed, because we are the beautifully imperfect, because we are the brilliantly limited beings, and because life is messy. Despite the challenges, against the odds and against the grain, softness still survives. There's a story by a man named Loren Eiseley. Do you know that name? I'm sorry. Idley is what his name is. I spelled it wrong. Loren Idley. It goes like this. Once upon a time, there was an old man who used to go to the ocean to do his writing. He had a habit of walking on the beach every morning before he began his work. And one day, early one day, he was walking along the shore after a big storm had passed, and he found a vast beach littered with starfish as far as the eye could see, stretching out in both directions. Off in the distance, the man noticed a small girl approaching. As the girl walked, she paused every so often, and as he grew closer, the man could see that she was occasionally bending down and picking up an object and throwing it into the sea. The girl came closer still, and the man called out, "Good morning. May I ask you what you are doing?" And the young girl paused and looked up, and she replied, "I'm throwing the starfish back into the ocean. The tide had washed them up onto the beach, and they can't return to the sea by themselves," the youth replied. And then when the sun gets high, they will die, unless I throw them back into the water. And then the old man replied, "But there must be tens of thousands of starfish here. I'm afraid that you won't really be able to make much of a difference." And the girl bent down and picked up yet another starfish and threw it as far as she could into the ocean. And she turned to the man and smiled and said, "I made a difference to that one." Loren Idley's mother was named Daisy. Daisy Corey Idley. She was Loren Idley's mom. Happy Mother's Day, Daisy. She and the family grew up in Nebraska. According to sources, Daisy was a self-taught prairie artist. My mom is a self-taught city artist. She's a Harlem girl. But Daisy was a self-taught prairie artist who was considered by many to be a beautiful woman. She lost her hearing as a child and sometimes exhibited irrational and destructive behaviors. Loren felt distant from his mom and was aware of his parents' unhappy marriage. And yet, in Loren, a softness still survives. You can feel it in his writing. You can feel it in the heart of the young girl that he imagined on the beach, saving the sun-soaked starfish one by one. When I was away at the Northern New England Conference in New Hampshire last month, I learned a new hymn, and the lyrics urged us, "Don't be discouraged by the enormity of the world's grief." I loved learning that hymn because the choice to not be discouraged is the cornerstone of courage, and there is no more courageous act than motherhood. There can be no more courageous act, for motherhood is defined in so many different ways. A poem by Rick Maston. Rick Maston's mother was a smoker. She had a royal attitude and more partial to her youngest son and less to Rick and the other kids. She had a favorite. And there was some jealousy there. In life, it wasn't widely known, but it was no secret that the youngest son had been her favorite. But the fact became more obvious after the mother died because of Birdie. Birdie was the mother's pet parrot. Not universally loved by the family, by the way. Rick wrote a poem about this. It was called "Mother's Voice is Still a Part of the Estate." The beginning words are these: "Thank God it wasn't me that she doted on, otherwise I would have been the one chosen to inherit Birdie." Mother's irksome parrot. That dubious honor was bequeathed to her youngest son, the pet, the one who could always get his way with the queen until he got it in the end. And I'm talking about the talking albatross, by the way. The rest of us stifling a grin as we watched the two of them begin an ephemeral relationship that didn't make it through the fall. But then I doubt if anyone could live with the disembodied voice of a dearly departed mom, still calling his name, still ruling the roost, cigarette hack and all. God, I really wonder what Mother's Day was like for that family and the irksome parrot in the house. That doesn't seem like the best way for our memories to live on after we die. Calling out our families in imitation, repeating the few phrases that we picked up over the years. Oh God, I just don't think that's the proper way to deal with loss. I'm sure that this poem is true, but I don't know what it teaches us. I don't know if it teaches us anything. And the same cannot be said of another one of his poems called A Way to Teach. He wrote, "It isn't so much having a question as having the ability to create one. And so he let them have their games until the tide was fully out, and when it was, he came upon the rocky beach, a maypole of a man, among the shouting children, bending down beside the magic pool and peering in, and he waited until a ring of faces gathered at the edge of his attention, and then slowly reaching through the mirror, he gave the sea anemone a punch, who did what sea anemones do, quickly folding in on what should have been lunch. Wow, he said, eyes popping, and then abruptly rising, but keeping in mind the length of his legs, he moved up the beach, the little children scrambling behind with questions. It seems to me that this maypole of a man was mothering these children, so to speak. He was sheltering their hearts, nurturing that which was fragile and delicate and vulnerable in the world around us. And like the young girl in the starfish story, Maston was also honoring the world around us. This is mothering too, the mothering of Mother Earth. Mothering to the world around us, this is what Rachel Carson did. She mothered the world around us at a time when few others would. Rachel Louise Carson was born in May of 1907, the same year that Lauren Elderly was born. And Rachel Carson's mother was named Maria Fraser McLean. Maria was Rachel Carson's mom. Happy Mother's Day, Maria. She raised her family on a 65-acre farm in Pennsylvania. According to sources, Rachel was an avid reader and began writing stories that often involved animals at the age of 8. At the age of 10, she had her first story published, and she enjoyed reading it in the St. Nicholas magazine, which also carried the first published stories of Beatrix Potter, who wrote The Tale of Peter Rabbit, and the novels of Jean Stratton Porter, a conservationist, and in her teen years, carried the works of Joseph Conrad, who wrote Heart of Darkness, Robert Louis Stevenson, who wrote The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and Herman Melville, who's a Unitarian, and as you know, wrote the famous Moby Dick. For Melville, the theme of the ocean was central to his literary imagination. For Melville, the ocean was a dangerous, foundational mystery on which his work rested. For Carson, the living, breathing foundation at the core of her life was the ocean. The PBS documentary about Rachel Carson introduces her writing in the following way. In 1962, they say, at the height of the Cold War, a moment when unrelenting anxiety about the future was leavened by the abiding faith in the power of science to secure our safety and prosperity. Then came an incendiary book that sowed the seeds of doubt. It was one of the nation's bestsellers in its first print, which came out on September 27th of 1962. Initially, more than 500,000 copies were sold. And Silent Spring, became the most controversial book of the year. The Eye of the Storm, in The Eye of the Storm was a woman named Rachel Carson, one of the most celebrated American writers of her time. With her first of 3 books, which were a lyrical trilogy about the sea, Carson opened people's eyes to the natural world. Of course, there was a ton of skepticism, but Rachel Carson persisted. She really lit things up with her passion. She started spiritual fires that are born and are still burning within us. That was deeply a courageous act and is courageous still. One of my dear friends, Dana Kurtz, wrote a song about this, and I'd like to share that song with you. Dana Kurtz wrote a song about the spiritual fire and a woman's courage to enjoy and to help to heal a beautiful city in southern Louisiana. The song is written as if the city of New Orleans is her friend. I'm going to ask you to sing the chorus with me as the chorus comes round again.
Dear Rachel Carson, you were right all along. Now our hearts are heavy and weary, and with all due respect, I've got something to add to your theory. You know how you said we would know we were lost when there finally were no birds left to sing. If we lose New Orleans, we'll lose everything.
Try that with me.
We lose New Orleans, lose everything. When I first came here, like being pulled by a string, every street had a name that I wanted to sing. Chapatulas, Burgundy, Dauphine. Saints and the bastards of Louis XIV. If we lose New Orleans, lose everything. If we lose New Orleans, lose everything. Dear Rachel Carson, I can see where we're headed. We're half underwater already. The pumps can't keep up. There's no profit in fixing the remedy. The country's in trouble, and we're here at the bottom, circling America's trade. If we lose New Orleans, lose everything. If we lose New Orleans, lose everything. There's Mardi Gras Indians on St. Joseph night. It's hard to explain. It's a dance and a fight. Oh yeah, won't bow down, they say. Feathers and beads, ancient warrior kings. If we lose New Orleans, we'll lose everything. They don't care about verse, they don't care about songs. They just care about money like they have all along. Chapatulas, Burgundy, Dauphine. Boop, boop, a doo, my ding-a-ling. If we lose New Orleans, we lose everything. If we lose New Orleans, we lose everything.
Chapatulas, Burgundy, and Dauphine were the streets that I walked during the sabbatical time. I sang this song each day that I did. It strengthened me, surprisingly, because of the magnitude of the problem. The magnitude of the problem encouraged me. It gave me hope. It was something about the inward decision that Rachel Carson had made to not be daunted by things of the outside world. There's a group of people that figured, how can I strike back? How can I fight back against what's happening in our world, what's happening in New Orleans? A young woman who was in college, her name was Francesca Troutman. She was on a date with her boyfriend, and they were splitting a bottle of wine. Both were environmentalists, and they knew that this bottle of wine would sooner or later end up in a landfill. So they commiserated, and they figured that they should do something about it. So they started a company called Glass Half Full, because there was no glass collection in New Orleans. They started collecting glass, and they were very successful. They had what they called a mountain of glass in their yard, and they didn't know what to do with it. So they began to grind it and process it in the best way they could. They raised $18,000 to start a nonprofit company, and that company did so well that they redoubled their efforts, bought a 3 or 4 acre plot of land, and have nothing but what is Louisiana's probably its largest glass recycling plant. They grind it to fine sand that goes into like cement mixes. They grind it, they separate by color so that when you, there's a gin bottle that's blue, Bombay maybe? Bombay gin. So when they have different kinds of bottles that separate by color, and they can make sand that artists use in gardens. And the biggest thing they do is they make a sand that's sufficiently coarse, not too fine to fill sandbags. And they go to area coffee shops who are buying coffee with in burlap bags, and they fill 35-pound bags with sand, and they slowly rebuild the levees that are being taken over by the ocean. They bring it out into the water, and in about 6 months, the burlap bag disintegrates into the ocean. They plant, I can't remember the plant because I'm not following that thing, but they plant a weed that grows in the ocean into the sand that they've created. And they mix some organic sand in there, and the plants do quite well. Once they root, they will begin to recover some of the land that we're losing. They're not nearly going fast enough. Which means, well, off book, that we have to drink more gin. It means we have to think. It means we have to think about efforts, ways of using what we have in abundance, in order to push back against the difficult times. When I hear her say the country's in trouble, you know, what is her line? We can, dear Rachel Carson, I can see where we're headed. We're half underwater already. The pumps can't keep up. There's no profit in fixing the levee. The country's in trouble, and we're here at the bottom just circling America's stream. You know, the idea of losing New Orleans, the idea of creating what we've become accustomed to call sacrifice cities is not something that we can live with. We need to figure out how to make healthy that which is not healthy. You know, we can't lose a city, certainly not a city like New Orleans, if only for the hot sauce. What shift can we make? What healing can happen? What gift from our mothers can we employ to magnify this miracle of life so that we make decisions that are worthy of our time? You know, all of us are imperfect, but what our mothers do, maybe at their own expense, is to deliver to us an idea of perfection that they may or may not be able to embody. I know that I would not be able to. But that gift is so precious. We should do nothing but share it with each other in kindness and in joy and in radical forgiveness that heals the wounds. I loved the idea of the poem by Rose Brick when she said, "I didn't know I was injured until I had a child." Our children will lead us is a line in the Bible. It's in Isaiah. You know, how can we make that an expression of faith and an act of kindness and an act of compassion that's worthy of our time? To my own mom, I would say, I'm a pain in the butt and I know it. And it's your fault, you made me. She won't appreciate that, actually. courageous woman on the planet. She lost her mom in childbirth and was raised by a family friend and delivered to her son ridiculously high expectations of a world that she did not live and an experience that she did not have. But she sent me farther than she could go, and my God. My actual emotions are like sadness and grief and tears, which I don't show her, I complain. Instead, I'm kidding. All that's to say that those emotions are so close and they're so precious that we should honor them however they come up and follow where they lead in goodness and in kindness and grace. Make me so. Happy Mother's Day, every mother. Blessed be, and amen.